Yo, I'm Bob. Into Star Wars. Happen to be totally blind since birth. Talking about The Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 1. This is the 33rd episode of the show overall, and it's called Confined. It premiered today, actually, uh, which is February 21st, 2024. I'm so used to talking about older TV shows. And now I am entirely in the present. I've got my mind focused on the here and now, where it belongs, as it were. So there are spoilers ahead. If you haven't watched the episode, I would advise you to do that. However, if you don't mind spoilers, that's quite all right. You just do whatever you want to do. Just know that you were warned. I think the cliffhanger at the end of The Bad Batch Season 2 has to be, well, in my mind anyway, the biggest in Star Wars animation. And it felt a bit like 2 years rather than almost 1 year in between that season 2 finale and the season 3 premiere. But it is finally here, and I like the recap that they tagged on to the beginning of Confined. I think this is actually the only recap we've gotten in Star Wars animation. I mean, you get the little bits of narration at the beginnings of the Clone Wars, but I think that's done more in like a wartime film reel kind of a thing with Tom Kane doing the voice at the very beginning. This feels more like something you would see on the 90s X-Men TV show, possibly Spider-Man. I love the soap opera feel that this recap gave the season 3 premiere. Well, I don't actually know if there were recaps on the beginnings of most soaps. I don't really remember too many that my grandma watched back in the day. Except the one in which Marlena was possessed by a demon in Days of Our Lives. That was kind of cool. But that aside, I really liked the setting of the season 3 premiere. We get to spend the entirety of the episode inside Mount Tantus, and I've really enjoyed this location since reading the Thrawn trilogy back in 1997 for the very first time. Um, this is, I would say, one of my favorite Star Wars locations because of Palpatine's dealings here. In the expanded universe, it was his storehouse. It's where he stored quite a few of his favorite things. He had Sparty cloning cylinders in Mount Tantus. So I like that this was brought into the Disney timeline. Tantus is such a fascinating location for me because, well, it's steeped in the dark side of the Force. And well, for me, locations and planets like that, I love those. They've got that horror vibe to them, and I do really enjoy a good horror movie or horror novel. And I think Tantus is just such an enticing location to visit. And I was under the impression when the episode started that we were actually going to be seeing Palpatine landing on Tantus, but that got thrown out the window when the shuttle crashed. And you see those stormtroopers making it out of the shuttle, but then they are quickly killed off. They are no more. And we get to see Royce Hemlock again, voiced by Jimmi Simpson here, and he doesn't really care about these guys at all. He is just, oh, okay, well, they're gone, so, don't worry about it. Well, they're as good as dead. We're not going to be focusing on them. We need to focus on Palpatine's project here. And that is, of course, producing a blood sample with the appropriate M count. And I like that well, it probably stands for midichlorians. If you've seen the prequels, you know what those are. And this is, of course, going to connect to the sequel trilogy. I like how we're seeing Palpatine. He's planning ahead into the far future. He knows he is a mere mortal, and he's trying to plan accordingly for his own future here. As we see, he's got all kinds of room set up in Tantus, and I like the centrifuge where you see the blood constantly dropping into there. I like getting to see Omega. She's of course front and center in this episode, and she is well, unfortunately, having to donate her own blood to this project. And of course, I mean, spoilers ahead for the next two episodes as well. You were warned, but I mean, it doesn't take a sighted person to see that. Yeah, this kid is going to be one of the keys to the Emperor's prolonged life, to Project Necromancer, as it were. And but this episode, I mean, I like the title, Confined, because even though Omega is confined, she still is spreading a bit of optimism, spreading a bit of hope to those who have been confined in Tantus for quite some time. So right away, she is talking to her sister, Emery, and she's seemingly complying with Emery, but I like how she's doing things to defy imperial orders. Like she's making the straw tukadal, and she's hiding that in that false bottom to her lunch bucket, her lunch kit there, and she's sneaking to see Crosshair more than once, and Crosshair, he's, well, feeling more than a little sorry for himself being there. He feels like he deserves to be in prison, and I like how Omega tells him nobody deserves to be here, and we're going to get out of here. However, Crosshair, his spirits, they're going to take a bit more than that to be lifted. But I like how she is risking a lot to sneak to the cells there in order to visit him. And she's also making a new friend in terms of Batcher, this lurker hound. And I like how she's kind of feeding this wild beast throughout the episode to where she domesticates her. And the audio description track, yeah, that's what the gender is identified as in the track there. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And of course, you've got Dee Baker voicing more than one character. He's voicing I think more than one commando in this episode. Of course, he's voicing Crosshair. And then from what I think, he's doing the growls and the barks of the hounds as well. So leave it to Dee to have to just do a whole truckload of growls and barks, as well as commandos, Crosshair. And then, it's nice to hear Michelle Ang back as Omega, as well as Jimmi Simpson voicing Dr. Royce Hemlock. Hemlock, he just keeps getting creepier as the episodes progress. I didn't like the guy at first, but the more I hear of him, he just makes my skin crawl. No wonder he got expelled from science school back in the day. He seems like the kind of guy who would carry around dead bugs in jars and just silently smile at you while he shows them off to you. I don't know why I get that impression about this guy, but he's just creepy. He belongs on Wayland in Mount Tantus, I think. So we hear mention of the vault in Tantus. We don't really get to see inside of it, but I love the EC Comics vibes it gives off. We do get to see, I think, the antechamber, but we don't really get to go in there. But I like that, it's mentioned, and we get to see just a bit more inside Tantus. I hope we get to visit the crypts. I don't know if there are crypts in Disney's timeline, but this place was more than a little creepy in the expanded universe. And I hope that, as we continue throughout season 3, we get to come back to Tantus and really get into a bit more of the horrific things going on. Not just inside the base, but perhaps underneath the base, maybe some failed experiments. I don't know what's going on in here, but I really like this location. I like how Omega was crucial in Batcher's freedom. She heals up this hound with a Bacta swab and does set her free. And, Omega's actions are going to have consequences later on. in episode 3. So I mean, she is spreading hope and optimism wherever she goes in Tantus, because Crosshair, I think he's beginning to feel it toward the end of the episode. You have Nala Se, who she's automatically attempting to keep Omega alive. I think she has grown more than a little attached to Omega throughout the series, even before the series. And I like how, as the episode is progressing, Nala Se, our resident Kaminoan, she's constantly discarding the blood samples that have been submitted for her approval there. So she's delaying Project Necromancer as much as she can. She does not want anything to happen to Omega in the episode. And I like, how at the end of the episode, even though Omega was reprimanded by Royce for setting the beast free, even though she was going to give up hope, this hope has come back around to her, because they took her Tukadal away from her a bit earlier in the episode. And as we near the end of the episode, we see Emery, and she enters Omega Cell. She hands the doll back to her. So you can see that Omega is rubbing off on more than one person during her unwilling stay in Mount Tantus. And so, I like this episode quite a bit. I know we don't really get a whole lot of action, but I like seeing things through Imperial eyes. I like episodes taking place entirely in and around Imperial bases, especially locations like Tantus. I really like the gloomy horror movie vibes this base is giving off. I think it tended to do a lot of that in Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and Last Command, the Thrawn trilogy back in the day. And I like that we're actually getting to see a bit more of the interior of Tantus. We didn't get to see enough of it, in my opinion, in season 2, so I like being back here. And I really enjoy the ending of the episode, because you have Royce, and he's warning Nala Se about Palpatine's impending arrival. The next time we're going to be talking about Paths Unknown. And yeah, I've seen these episodes already, but I'm going to split this video up into 3, because I think trying to cover everything in one video is probably going to take a heck of a long time. So I'm going to try and split these into 3 parts if I can. I want to try and devote as much time to each episode as I can, because I really did enjoy all 3 of them for various reasons. So, Royce tells Omega that her idealism is a weakness, but I like that this is kind of spreading throughout Tantus. Unbeknownst to Royce, this is, I do believe, actually going to spell his downfall, because it's a kind of snowball effect. Omega's kind of spreading it to Emery. She's spreading it to Nala Se. She is spreading hope to Crosshair, but Royce, so full of himself, narcissistic as he is, he doesn't see it. He is bent on obtaining as much power as he can, and I like how, this is kind of going on under his nose, and he is, of course, underestimating Omega and what she has started inside of Tantus. And I love the voice work in this episode, with Michelle Ang and Dee Baker. You have Keisha Castle-Hughes back as Emery. It's a small cast, but they do so much in the season 3 premiere, and I love what's set up here. I can't wait to talk about Paths Unknown, so be here for that next time, and I will hear you guys then. May the Force be with you.